on? Yes. No, the screen, and if you don't want people to hear you. Okay, it's after 4 o'clock. It's 4 something. 4:02, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Chairman Anker Jensen.
Present.
Vice Chairman Dr. Joe Hinojosa.
Present.
Treasurer Gerardo Gonzalez.
Present.
Secretary Liliana Elizondo. Board Member Frank Orozco Jr.
Present.
Board Member Anna O'Quinn.
She is there.
Yes, she is.
Present. Present.
Board Member Benjamin Peña. For the record, Mr. Benjamin Peña is absent. Next item, public comment period. There were no registered comments, Chairman. Next item, consideration and action, if any, on the following items. 1.1, approval of the minutes of the May 15, 2025 regular board meeting. 1.2, approval of the payments issued in May of 2025.
Any questions on this? In which case, can I have a motion?
I make
to
a
approve?
motion to accept the approval of the minutes
And,
and the approval of the payments issued.
okay, any
Second.
discussions, any questions?
I'll second it.
Okay, we go to close the second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and motion passes. Next item.
Next item, staff reports. The following staff reports have been submitted in writing and are included in the GBIC board packet. 2, business retention and expansion and workforce development efforts. 3, marketing and communications. 4, strategic plan updates.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to request that these reports be skipped in lieu of time because the executive session is going to be prolonged today. The reports are included in the board packet.
Any objections from the board members to that?
No objection.
Okay, do I need a motion to accept that?
So motioned. Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Ayes have it, we move on.
Next item, business recruitment event and sponsorships presented by Jerry Briones.
So it was, on the governor's side, it was a slow month. We had we only had 7
Sorry. On the lead, can you hear me? I can't. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So it was on the governor's side. It was a little slow. I think it starts to kind of the summer months start to kick in. So we only had about 7. However, we attended Select USA. We had 13 meetings that were set up through Research FDI. We actually did attend all of them. We had one that wasn't able to get their paperwork in order, but we still met with them on Zoom. Ms. Nena has been doing a good job of following up with them and keeping up with them. We've got a couple more follow-up Zoom meetings in the next couple of weeks. Project Magic is a CNC machining company from Ontario, Canada. They're actually coming via Mexico. The owner of a maquiladora over there was able to persuade them that it would be better if they did it in the U.S., specifically in Brownsville. They've already bought one building, which is 150,000 square feet, and they're looking for land to build a 200,000 square foot warehouse space. We've already met with them several times, and I think this week they were supposed to meet with the parent company out of Canada and sign the contracts to, they're actually going to do a partnership, the Mexican company with the Canadian company. There's a similar project that I didn't put up there because we haven't put a project name to it, also similar. Also a Canadian company partnering up with a Mexican company. Them two are looking at coming over here. We've already found them some warehouse space. I think they're still negotiating the lease. In the beginning, I think they only need maybe about 5,000 square feet and about 5 employees, but they're projecting within 3 years to be at over 150 employees. So that's going to be a good project. They just wanted to kind of get their foot in the door, and then from there kind of expand as they're ramping up. Project Cali, that's developers from California that were here the weekend of Memorial Day. They really enjoyed it. Actually, this was their 3rd visit, and they brought some additional family members. It's a family-owned development, and they brought additional members this last visit, and they are ready to sign an LOI on 20 acres as soon as we give them a price per acre on developed land. They want developed land. Then we still have 4 leads in the preliminary stages. We're obviously it's going back and forth, and they change. We actually got a big one day before yesterday. They're looking at 322 acres across from the port, but it's not port land. And actually got contacted by 3 different brokers. But then the actual lead broker who's carrying the project emailed, and he actually just sent me an email before coming down here with a punch list of things that he wants to work on. So I said, okay. I didn't get a chance to respond, but he did. He did send that just a little while ago. And then, of course, the 7 governors' RFIs. We didn't respond to any, basically because about 3 of them didn't have any funding. So there's no need to go after companies that don't have any funding, right? And then the other ones were some, what we called back in the past, kaboom projects that were probably better suited for the port, but they also were waiting on contracts and some other things before they could make a decision on funding. So we didn't do anything on the RFI side. Any questions on the leads or anything?
I had one. You said
Yes, sir.
that one contract for 300 and some odd acres.
322 acres? Yes, sir.
Yeah, across from the port.
Yes, sir.
Is that, you said it's not port land?
It's not port land. It is owned by a private individual.
Okay, but is that within our taxing jurisdiction?
That's a good question. I haven't gotten the full details on it yet. They're kind of been a little squirrely. But they did send me right now a map, so I'll take a look at it and see where it lies. It's next to Forza Steel, so I'm not sure if Forza Steel falls within our boundaries. It doesn't, so it's probably a no. However, it is a big project, and it does bring some substantial jobs.
No, I agree, but.
Yeah.
But
But no, I wouldn't be able to right now
Okay.
tell you, but I'll find out and I'll let you know, sir.
Okay, hey,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
And I'll add to that, projects that fall just outside of the city limits, we still benefit from, all the jobs. Obviously, the capital investment is more on the county side, but again, the county is part of who we are as well. And with this organization being Greater Brownsville, having that regional approach, we're at a point right now whether, projects are inside the city limits or not. Some of these projects are requiring for companies just to come in and start supplying them. So it might not check all the boxes, but in the end, it's still a win for the Greater Brownsville area.
Well, I have a question then on what are the legalities of us providing any kind of funding for industry that we don't get any tax?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's
Okay.
just a question. Yeah.
That's a good question, Dr. Hinojosa. So by state statute, Type A funds can be used to incentivize companies within its proper county. This organization has practiced that to a certain extent. I'll give you, SpaceX as an example. It's out in the county, and this organization was involved with that project from day one and incentivized them, in addition to the governor's office. Type B funds are a little bit more restrictive as far as how far they can incentivize, but this organization can.
And just one last item that is that we're actually competing with Mobile, Alabama on this project. So I asked them, you know what, we need to sign an NDA, give me an NDA so that we can get more information, because we can actually bring some substantial incentives from the state if this is what it's going to be about. So I'll see if I can get that. And then on the event sites, obviously we had the GBIC groundbreaking. We had 103 people that attended, so it was very well attended. Thank you all for attending. Couple of pictures there from the group side. We still attended the UTRGV Division of Research and CEC's Dean Office Appreciation Luncheon. They're starting to work a little better with us. We look like we may be using Dr. Malik to do some of our financial ROIs from UTRGV as well. He actually sent me the contract, Gilbert, yesterday.
Okay.
So I'll show that. I'll give that to you. And then I think we already hit this one, but it's the cross-border industrial investment that Gilberto and the mayor spoke at, and that was also attended by myself and by Ms. Erendida in Monterrey. So that concludes my presentation, myself.
Any questions for Jerry?
Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Next item, executive report by Gilberto Salinas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll start with what's happened in the last couple of months. We've had a string of successes. Amazon being the biggest announcement that we had, that gained a lot of traction as far as getting our name out there. And then also working, hand in hand with them to make sure that they have everything that they need to break ground, which they have already. Linde, there's news that broke out about that particular operation out on the north side as well, at the North Brownsville Industrial Park. And then Project Razor, we are waiting for the formal announcement, but they are moving dirt as we speak. So again, some of these are in the pipeline. Rally in the Valley, that was a couple of months ago, but again, that was very well intended with a lot of our STEM students, which is a pipeline for a lot of our companies here. The Space Symposium, there was a lot of great content that came out of that, some great contacts as well, and that was a great event for our local leadership, our business leadership, and some of our STEM students. And then, as Jerry mentioned, the groundbreaking for the tech park. So what I like to say is that it's no accident that all these things are happening. There's a lot of talent in this organization, but one of the things that I've said is that, talent alone can't get the job done. It's all about focus. And right now, we've been focused for the last 7 months, 6, 7 months, in making sure that we continue on the path of recruitment, negotiating and closing deals, especially some of the ones that we have in the pipeline right now. Hence, that's why we're having success. Along those lines, talking about team, we did have a New York consultant come into our office last week, and she is an executive coach for Fortune 500 companies, so very highly regarded in her field. She put us through a day-long retreat here for our organization, to which we found out that we still have a ways to go to be called a team. So we all kind of learned from that. And that's okay, because it's part of the process. Myself coming in, it was okay. The first 6 months is one, getting to know each other, be focused on what we have to do, which is deliver on some of these projects, have some successes, start really getting our leadership to understand what economic development is about, and then demonstrate what value add is for this particular organization, and then along the way, just building some of that trust, right? That's something that we've been talking about, just getting that as far as from the public side. So we are working on that now. The second half of this year is now really focusing on building that team. And that, like I said originally when I got here, it's a year-long process to get ourselves to the point where we can actually say, okay, we're now working as a team. There are going to be some changes coming. The consultant's already making some recommendations. The staff knows that already. We know that. We knew that going in, as well as her giving us some of those recommendations. And as I like to say, what we're doing today is building that team for the next 10 years, not just for this organization, but for this community. Along those lines, there has been one change that's been implemented, and that's a new position that we created. That is Director of Space and Energy. So Giovanna Rangel was promoted to that position, and what that means is she's going to be in charge of all things. Oh, there was?
I thought you were going to say she's off to Mars.
That was one of the things that was identified, right? So, yeah, good one. So what that means, she's in charge of all things space and energy. And in talking to the Texas Space Commissioner, and talking about what's going on here, mentioned the position that we're creating and what have you. And he said, this is Norman Garcia, he said, that's one of the best things you can move. That sends a message to your prospect, to your project, to your company, which is SpaceX, that we're here to help you in every which way we can to make sure that they have success, and in turn, this community has success as well. There'll be some more changes coming in the next few months. Talking about retreats, We are scheduling a board retreat for September, so I do need you all to tell me your availability for September. I think there's a couple of days that have been floated. That board retreat, so everything that we've been doing in-house is on how to get things done and building our organization from the ground up. The board retreat is gonna be designed for big picture, the vision. What do we wanna look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? So internally, that retreat was again for our internal structure, our blueprint, and look at us as the implementers. So you all come in with a big vision, and we're the ones that how we get that done. So that's why we're splitting those two up. On planning initiatives, something else that we're doing now, in August, we're gonna be hosting a series of new member orientations. Not that we have new board members, but it'll be for you all, for current board members, also for city commissioners, as well as the mayor, and newly elected city commissioners. That's a practice that I've done ever since I've had economic development teams, is on an annual basis, just whoever's new, bring them in for an orientation. It's all things economic development, 101, how economic development works, the impact of having an EDO in your community, and in Brownsville, what does economic development mean, you know, because a lot of people will throw that word around loosely. This orientation is specifically designed to address that. This is what economic development means, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is why we do what we're gonna be doing. And that will dovetail into our budget. So we have a budget request coming up. That's gonna be a 3-step process. Next month internally, we'll start working on that for our fiscal year 2025, 2026. And then in August, we'll bring it to the board for approval. And then somewhere in between, the city said we have a budget workshop in August. And then we take it in September for final approval by the city commission. So I still have to figure out what was done last year to replicate that and just go through that process. Our annual report, our first ever annual report, we're working on that. That's Marcela. And that should be finished and ready to go by September, which will coincide and will be presented for our final budget request at the city commission. So in closing, this organization, especially, you know, the team here, we're getting a taste of what success looks like, but we're also getting a taste of the work that goes into it. Especially in executive session, we're gonna be talking about some of the projects that, actually everything that's in executive session has been started by this group here. So some of the announcements that we had were in the works when I got here, and they got expedited. Now everything is fresh. It's like, here's what's happened here in the last 6-7 months. So it's exciting to see where we're at and how everybody's kind of growing into those positions and really just pushing everything forward. So exciting times. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
You got it on?
Yeah, I got it on. I remember at one point in time, you were looking at the possibility of changing our name, Greater Brownsville, GBIC, to something that means more economic development.
Correct.
Is that still in the planning stages?
Yes, sir. We were looking to do something last month, but because of everything that was going on, we've pushed back a few months. So that is in the works. We've thrown some names around. It'll come back to this board to be able to now, at the end of the day, be able to have a name that says we're the Economic Development Group. As it is right now, we're hearing site selectors, which are the ones that, they're the gatekeepers for projects. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they see our name and they get confused. So that's not good. So yes, sir,
Okay.
we're going through that drill. We just pushed it back just because of everything that was happening.
Okay, well, I did not know if that was going to be one of the things that we would be doing on a retreat to finalize the name, or you're going to try to do it before the retreat?
That's one of several things we're going to be talking at the retreat.
Okay.
That's one of them, and there's other big ticket items we're going to be talking about there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Gilbert. Let's move
Thank
on
you.
to the next item.
Next item, Discussion, consideration, and possible action authorizing an amendment to the GBIC bylaws to change the title of the position of the board president to the board chairman, and to change the title of the position of the executive director to president and chief executive officer, presented by Jose Caso.
Good afternoon, board members. There's an action item for a proposed amendment to our bylaws that will help clarify the leadership structure of the organization and align our officer titles more closely with modern, commonly recognized governance standards. I guess specifically, the proposed title change, which is not going to result in any substantive alteration, is that the title president, which the chairman is currently technically the president, even though we call him the chairman, would be changed to chairman of the board, as well as for Mr. Salinas, that instead of being the chief executive officer, he will be the president and CEO. And this update would bring us in line with standard nomenclature used across similar public-private economic development organizations. And the process is that we need to give 3 days written notice of the change, which we already did. Second, we need an affirmative vote, so we'll have to take an individual vote for at least 4 of the board members. And third, this would be a substantial change that we would need ratification by the city council, but in this particular case, as it's non-substantive, we really don't need ratification, so we can proceed without it. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions or if we're ready to entertain a motion.
Any questions for?
I make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Any discussion?
I would just, let's take an individual vote, just so we can have it for the record, because
Okay.
So,
All right, call them out.
Ms. Elizondo?
In favor.
Ms. Dr. Hinojosa?
In favor.
Chairman Jensen?
In favor?
Mr. Orozco?
Favor.
Mr. Gerardo?
In favor.
Okay, so we have 6. Oh, okay.
In favor.
Greg Drummond, okay, excellent. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 and 1 no vote. So with that, the bylaws are modified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President. Mr. President. President and CEO.
Now I get it.
Next item, discussion, consideration, and possible action authorizing a payment of $1,143,150.42 to Brownsville Public Utilities to install electrical infrastructure and equipment within the Greater Brownsville Tech District, Phase 1 West Subdivision.
And so with this one, board members, we're going to request that this be taken into executive. I don't know if you'd like to proceed with the remaining action items, or if we can go into executive now, and then we'll return for the remainder of the board.
What do you guys want to do? You want to proceed with all the other items and go to executive, or executive now and come back?
So 2 more items. So we can just push it back after executive.
Yeah. Okay, let's just, Gilbert, let's continue with all the remaining items, and we'll go to executive after that.
What do we go into executive? What do you want?
My recommendation is to move this item to after executive session.
Okay,
Hmm.
so we'll modify it, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good. Any objection? Okay, good.
Next item, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding issuance of a work authorization to HAF Associates for engineering services pertaining to the Greater Brownsville Tech District, Phase 2 West Subdivision.
And so, board members, this is just an action item that we discussed at the last board meeting. We do have a representative from HAF that can briefly discuss what this entails. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and discuss the scope of the project and the cost.
My name is John Clem. I'm Operations Manager for HAF Associates here in Brownsville, Texas. This is for the development that is between the railroad tracks adjacent to FM 1847. You all requested a proposal for that section.
You have a map?
No, we do not have a map. It was in a, was it in the packet?
It's between the railroad tracks and you said, and Paredes line.
I have a hard copy of the map if you want to take a look at that one.
Can you just hold it up?
And my glasses, sorry.
There
Is
you
there
go.
like,
Okay, yeah.
here's the railroad tracks here. 1847, 511, which I still call 511 for those people who've been in Brownsville forever. It's a southern portion of this tract that is bound by the railroad tracks 1847 and 511.
Where in that relation is phase one?
It's off to the left.
On the opposite side of your old property. So this is right adjacent to the overpass along 1847.
But it is like.
On the other side of the line.
This is the 35 acre?
Correct.
Yeah.
The 35-acre tract. The proposal is to subdivide that lot into, I believe, 2 lots, and a portion of it will be reserved because there's a designated area as wetlands, and that's something we need to discuss with you all to figure out how to address that. But this is for the plat. Anything now going in front of the city as state law has to be subdivided and platted, so this is for the fees associated with that. It also extends sanitary sewer services to this location. Water is already readily available in front of the properties.
And I'll add to that, that was as a result of a Project Turbine coming into that area and looking at securing that spot. So this is the next step in making sure that they get what they need in order to start construction.
We already got an LOI with these guys,
Eh, We're in the process of moving on now to the contract phase.
okay.
So can you tell us how much the contract is gonna
Yeah,
be?
this is something else. To the eye.
The engineering surveying fee is $92,635. And it says sales tax in here, but you all are tax exempt, so sales tax does not apply.
How much was that again?
$92,635.
Just to clarify, we're not sales tax exempt.
Okay, well, when you develop land for a profit, you have to pay sales tax. So sales tax will be added to that. It's $1,635 sales tax.
And staff request approval?
Yes, sir. Staff recommendation.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept that, or anyone want to discuss it?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, discussion, consideration, and acknowledgement of the Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation financials presented by Salvador Villapando.
Good afternoon, board members. Today we'll go over the financials through the month of May, which accounts for 8 months of activity for the current fiscal year. Total assets are currently $43.4 million, with cash at $250,000, investments at $28.8 million, receivables at $672,000, which is the sales tax for April, and then lastly, net assets at $13.6 million. Liabilities are currently at $293,000, which account for accounts payable and an escrow deposit. And then our total net position is currently at $43.1 million. Within our net position, we do have $29.4 million in our operating fund and $13.6 in our capital asset fund. And then within our operating fund, we have $27.4 unrestricted and $2 million restricted. At the next board meeting, I'll update the restricted amount after recommendation. Currently, the $2 million only accounts for incentives that have been approved by the board. We do have some large contracts, for example, Cornet Construction for the industrial park. We have tip strategies for the strategic plan, DCI for media and marketing, site selection, etc. that amount to about $10.3 million. So in reality, that restricted amount should be higher, and naturally our unrestricted fund balance will be reduced by about $10 million. So it'll more accurately reflect how much we have in unrestricted funds. On here we have our budget to actuals through the month of May. Total revenues are currently at $5.6 million, with sales tax at $4.6 million, interest at $800,000, which is about $100,000 per month in sales tax. In interest earned, $198,000 on the gain of sale of land, $4,000 in sponsorships, and $26,000 in miscellaneous revenues. Total expenditures are $3 million, with $1.9 in operating, $75,000 in incentives, and $1.1 million in initiatives. Overall, we have revenues over expenditures of $2.6 million through 8 months. And then lastly, we have the sales tax comparison. Specifically for April, collections were $676,000, which is about a 5.6% increase compared to last year. And then through the month of April, collections are 4.6 million, which is about a 3% increase. If we account for the anomaly last year, which included an audit in December, so in reality, we have an increase, a double of 3% is 6% when we take that into consideration. And then our total projected sales tax for the year is 7.8 million. That concludes the financials. If there's any questions.
Any questions, anybody?
Motion to accept?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to accept and a second in discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you very much, staff.
Next item, closed session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, 551.072, and 551.087. 7.1 Project Industrial, 7.2 Project Big Tuna, 7.3 Project Hot Rod. We need
Yeah, don't ask.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we go into executive.
I'll make a motion to reconvene.
Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I have it, we are back in session.
For the record, board members Gerardo Gonzalez and Ana Onoquin are abstaining from voting on this item. And so, Chairman, we request a motion to proceed as directed in executive and to issue a work authorization to HAF for engineering services for Tech District Phase 3 West Subdivision with a cost of $1,186,941 with 0 cents.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second in discussion. No, everybody in favor say aye.
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 Ayes have it, the motion passes.
And also, we're gonna return to the item pertaining to PUB and just request no action
Or tabling.
for tabling. So if we can get a motion to.
Okay, I make a motion to table that PUB item.
Second?
Okay, we have motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion carries. Papa?
Yes, and that's it for mine. So I think the next item is the adjournment.
Next item, what, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Really? The ayes have it, we are adjourned.
Thank you.